Okay, let's start our class. So, as we know in the previous class what we discussed was, we started with our first chapter, that was basic economic concepts and definitions. As I mentioned in that class, the chapter is not directly tested in an exam via question, but its concepts are used in your further chapters. Okay? So, in the previous class we discussed about what are the various types of economies and many more economic concepts such as supply, demand, what are the two dimensions of economics, that is microeconomics, macroeconomics. Now, we would be completing this chapter in a class with continuing further topics. So, note down the first topic, it is production possibility curve. Which is in short called PPC. Okay? It is again a microeconomic concept. So, production possibility curve, as the name suggests, it is a curve where we show the production capacity or the possibility of production combination. Okay? So, if I tell about the definition, it is a curve showing possible combination. Possible combination of what? Production. Production of goods or services. As I said, we don't only produce goods, we also produce services in the economy. Okay? In a country, or we can say in an economy, assuming all resources efficiently used. Any complication in the definition, online student? Here we talk about the production combination. Okay? How many units of good A I can produce and simultaneously good B I can produce. So, I am talking about the combination of production of goods and services. Okay? And there is an assumption that I am using all resources efficiently. Is the definition clear? Shall we move forward to a graph or curve? Give me a yes in the chat room if it is clear. Okay, so now if I talk about the graph, this is my graph. Here I write good B for example, here I write my good A, and this is my origin, and this is my, these are my 3 points. Okay. So, this is called my PPC, production possibility curve. This is my y axis, this is my x axis. Even though you can, you are not asked to draw a curve in the exam, but you may be asked or tested how to interpret this curve. Okay, you may get a curve question and you can be asked to interpret this curve. Okay, so this is the line. This is the maximum output I can produce with my goods, with my current resources in the economy. Okay, this shows my maximum output to be produced. This is my basically feasible region, as the name suggests, feasible, or I can say attainable, which I can attain. Okay, this is called, this blue portion, whatever is outside my maximum output, this is my unfeasible, or I say unattainable region. Why? Because I currently do not have sufficient resources to produce goods and services at this region. That's why it is unattainable. Okay? Is this curve clear? Now, when I am talking about this curve, this line, I am using my resources in most efficient way. Okay? Here I am achieving my efficiency, economic efficiency, but in this region I am under allocating. Okay, I am under efficient, inefficient. I am basically inefficient here, and this I can not achieve. Is the curve clear? Are the dimensions of curve clear? Okay. Now coming to the advantages and disadvantages, since we are seeking a graph that is more visually appealable, okay, we can more visually understand the things easily, okay. But if I talk about the disadvantages, so disadvantages are basically in its assumptions only. We have basically two assumptions, two key assumptions when I am talking about PPC. What are the two assumptions? First one is there is only two goods in the economy. We can only produce two goods, but that is not true. We can produce a lot of variety of goods and services, but in the PPC we can only assume two goods. This x-axis and this y-axis. We assume good A is here, good B is here. That's why we are only producing two goods. Second assumption is that there is no alternative to any good. This is also not possible. If I am, for example, taking car here, I can have alternatives of car, right, but PPC assumes that there is no alternative of any good. So that's why these are the disadvantages and assumptions only. Assumptions became the disadvantages only. Is it clear? Now how to interpret the combinations? For example, if I am given a table, this is my car, for example, clothes, and this is my food, okay. I can take any item of cloth, I can take any item of food. When I am producing 8, this is 0. When I am producing this, for example, I reduce this one, I increase this, and when I am, for example, doing this, so I am getting this, and when I am doing, for example, this, I am getting this, okay. Now, if I plot this and I, for example, say cloth are here and I am saying food are here, so my points will be somewhere plotted like this, okay. This is my PPC plotted. This means when I am producing 8 units of clothes, I am not producing any units of food, because I only have resources which can give me 8 units of cloth. Clear? My units of resources remain same. For example, if I am writing 10, 10, 10, my units of resources remain same. So, this line means when I am reducing 1 unit of cloth, I am now producing 7 units of cloth, my resources are used in a way that I am able to produce 2 units of food, okay. Now coming to this side, this means that when I am producing 9 units of food, I have used all the resources and I cannot no longer produce my clothes. Is the PPC clear? This is just an example of table. You can get another values, you can plot those values. Is this clear till now? Give me a yes in the chat room. Online student, please give me a yes in the chat room so that I know that you have understood till now, and then we can move forward to the properties of the PPAC. Okay, now coming to the properties of PPC, which makes a major question. There are two properties, concave to origin. As you can see, I have not made a downward sloping straight line, I made a concave graph, right. Similarly, second property is it is always downward sloping. Okay, these are two major properties of PPC, and we will also understand what are the reasons behind these two properties, okay. So now if I talk about why my PPC is concave to origin and not a straight line, this can be asked in your exam, why a PPC is not a straight line. So basically, as I said, you can see, as I am increasing more and more units of my food, I am reducing the units of clothes. So there is a concept called increasing opportunity cost. Increasing opportunity cost of production. This means to produce one additional unit of good A, I have to sacrifice more and more units of good B. Note it down. To produce one additional unit of A, I have to sacrifice more and more of B. A or B, you can use another good types. Is this clear? Now coming to why it is always downward sloping and not upward sloping. It's because I have diminishing an efficiency of resources. For example, I have 5 units of resources that can help me produce clothes, and I have 5 units of resources that can help me produce, for example, food. Okay. Now I am saying, okay, I do not need to produce food, I have to use these resources to produce clothes only. So the level of efficiency they have for producing food will be higher than the level of efficiency they would be having to produce clothes, right? So if I employ these resources to my clothes, obviously my efficiency would reduce and I would be able to produce lesser units in total. Is it clear? I am shifting my, for example, there is labor A who is assigned, who is specializing in producing clothes, and there is labor B who is specialized in producing food item, right, or good B. So if there is demand for higher demand for clothes and I shift my labor's task to that cloth section, the person who was previously specializing in producing food item is now employed in producing cloth item. Obviously his or her efficiency would reduce, he would be able to produce lesser units in total as compared to someone who is specializing in that. This is called my diminishing efficiency of resources, and due to this we have a downward sloping line. Okay, is this clear? So these were the two properties of PPC. Summarizing the PPC, it is a curve that shows the possible combination of two goods produced in an economy or services produced in an economy. We are assuming here that there are only two goods produced in an economy and that there are no alternatives. These two assumptions basically become the disadvantage of PPC only. Okay. Two properties of PPC are, these are concave to origin due to increasing opportunity cost, and these are downward sloping line due to decreasing efficiency of resources. Now I have talked about efficiency. What is efficiency and what are the types of efficiency? So we basically have three types of efficiency. First one is economic efficiency. Economic efficiency is basically, remember or memorize the keywords here: minimum cost, maximum benefit. My economy is producing goods and services at minimum possible cost, and we are being able to derive maximum benefit of resources. Okay, minimum cost, maximum benefit of resources. If I talk about my second efficiency, it is productive efficiency. This is basically efficiency by firms or production units. So this is again maximum output at minimum cost. Productive efficiency is I am able to produce maximum output from at the possible available resources at minimum cost. Okay. If my resources are for example able to produce 10 units, and I am able to produce 10 units only, then I am reaching my productive efficiency. And if I am producing for example 9 or less units, then I am not achieving productive efficiency, I am inefficient. Clear? Coming to third efficiency, it is basically allocative efficiency. Allocative efficiency basically means maximum satisfaction from consumption to possible income levels. It means this is the situation where I am able to allocate, or my economy is able to allocate goods and services in such a combination that a maximum number of people are getting maximum satisfaction at current income level, because consumption is related to income level, that is why we have to use the keyword here income level. Okay. So, if I talk about differentiation, it is minimum cost at maximum benefits of resources. This is maximum output, and this talks about basically maximum satisfaction through the allocation of goods and services. Is it clear what is the efficiency? So, you can use these types of efficiency when you are explaining a topic. Now, coming to one more key topic of microeconomics is circular flow of income. Circular flow of income. As the name itself suggests, circular flow, something that is moving in cycle. Okay? What is moving in cycle? The income is moving in cycle. Is it clear? The definition itself comes out of the terminology. So, my income is moving in a circular flow. Now, what are the key stakeholders in this circular flow? So, if I talk about my economy, I have producers producing things, I have consumers consuming things, right. I am talking about the very basic economic structure. We have producers, we have consumers. Okay. So, I make for example people here, these are consumers, and these is basically your producer or production unit. Okay. So, what is the flow? They are providing the goods to them, goods and services, they produce goods and services, and they are providing them to consumers. What consumers do? They provide their land, labor, capital to the producers, which help them to produce the goods and services. So, basically consumers, what consumers give? Land, labor or capital. So, basically factors of production, and in return of these factors of production, the production uses these factors, uses these resources and provides them with goods and services. Okay, there is no money involved here. If I talk about, here I am talking about goods, factors of production which are given in kind. Here also I am talking about goods and services. So, this type of flow of income between consumers and producers is called real flow. Okay, this is called real flow. Now, there can be another type in which money is involved. How money is involved? Now, this is producers. They have taken factors of production. So, they might be giving, for example, if they have used their land, so they will be providing rent on the land, right. If they have used their labor, they would be providing wages to them. So, producers will be giving them factor income, right, which can be rent, wages for their labor, or dividend or interest for their capital. These are basically factor income. Okay. And consumers have consumed their goods and services that producers have produced. So, they might be paying the price of goods and services. So, I write here price of goods and services. So here I can see, here also money is involved, here also money is involved. That's why this type of flow is called money flow. Is it clear? So if I make a wholesome diagram of this, these are producers, these are consumers. Producers provide consumers provide producers with factors of production, and in return of that they get factor income. Similarly, producers provide consumers with goods and services, and in return of that consumers pay price of goods and services. So this is basically your circular flow of income. The income from producer is going to consumers, and consumers it is going to producers. That's why my money moves in a cycle. Is this clear, guys? Give me a yes in the chat room. So we have discussed two important topics today. First one is PPC, a very important topic in microeconomics, and second one is this real flow or money flow of income. Give me a yes in the chat room, giving you 30 seconds to grasp everything and ask me doubt regarding what we have discussed, and then we can move to some independent definitions. Quickly. Okay, Harshia. Any doubt till now? Any doubt till now? Okay, assuming there is no doubt, let's move to some independent topics, some independent definitions. Okay, so first one I am talking about unemployment. What is unemployment? Any one of you can give me a definition, a basic definition. What is unemployment? Harshia, could you give me the definition of unemployment if you know? So look, I am writing the definition of unemployment. Please note that the definition of unemployment is quite controversial. Why? Because there is a lot of controversies, a lot of doubt what should be included in unemployment, what should not be included in unemployment. For example, a common question is that a mother who is cooking in the or a housewife who is cooking in the house, is she called unemployed or not? So there is lot of controversies, but we go with the standard definition which includes number of people of working age. This is one keyword. Okay, if I say there is a student, for example, for example in a country A the working age is 18 years and there is a student of 17 years. If I ask whether he is employed or not or unemployed, no, he is not unemployed. Why? Because he is not of working age yet. So that's why in the exam you can get a question like identify the people who are unemployed here. So in that time you have to use this definition, the keywords from this definition, and identify whether these keywords are fit into the scenario or not. If any of the keyword is missing, then we cannot say that the person is unemployed. Okay? And when I say the person is not unemployed, this basically does not mean that the person is employed. Okay? So number of people of working age who are actively looking for job. this is second keyword, actively looking for job. If I say there are two graduates, first one is not looking for job, he is thinking of doing masters for example, okay, and second one is looking for job and she is not getting a job yet. So the first person who is looking to do masters is not called unemployed. Why? Because he is not actively looking for a job. But the second person who is not getting a job can be called unemployed. Difference is clear? The person should be of working age, the person should actively look for a job but is currently without a job. Obviously this last condition should not have job. Is the definition clear? This is one of the good definition of unemployment that involves the keywords and helps you identify whether the person is unemployed or not. Give me yes if this employment definition is clear. We will be providing you notes, so make sure you are understanding the concepts rather than writing the things, okay. The notes would be sufficient to get over these definitions. Just make sure you are understanding the concepts and not learning the definitions here. Give me a yes in the chat room if this is clear and we can move forward. Okay, very good. Coming to two more important terms, inflation and recession. Okay, inflation is basically increase in price level over years. Okay, if I say my price level was for example 10 rupees and next year it increased to 11, then I can calculate the annual percentage of inflation, which is basically using the previous and current price level. Okay, so this is increase in price level, or I say general price level increase. Okay, so how can I calculate my annual percentage of inflation? Calculation is basically simple, using the percentage increase formula. This will be new price minus original price, basically the increase in price divided by original price into 100. This is the percentage to get the inflation percentage. Okay. If I talk about recession, recession is basically decrease in output over a continuous number of years. We can't generally notice decrease in output in a particular year because there gets some fluctuation, but if there is consistent decrease in the output for some years, then it is called a recession. Clear, guys? If there is a consistent, here consistent word is important, if there is a consistent decrease in output. Why? Because it is possible that there remains a fluctuation in the output. It's increasing one year, it's decreasing one year. So I can't say if it is decreasing, it is a recession. There should be a consistent decrease in the output for few years. Now, what is the definition of these few years? It's quite subjective. So it depends country to country or economy to economy. Is the definition of inflation and recession clear? And when I talk about the output, I am talking about national output. Now, I am not talking about individual output. Okay, so inflation and recession, are these microeconomic topic or macroeconomic topic? Quickly give me in the chat room. If I am talking about national output, if I am talking about price level of the economy, am I talking about micro level or macro level? So are these the concepts of microeconomics or macroeconomics? Quickly give me in the chat room. These are macroeconomic concepts. Why? Because I am talking about the aggregate output or national output. Okay. So these are macro concepts. Okay. Now coming to next term is marginal benefit and marginal cost. So note that whenever this marginal word comes, marginal basically means additional. Okay, I am saying I am producing 1 unit of cloth. So I am getting the cost of, for example, 20 units. Okay. Now I am producing 2 units of clothes and I am getting the cost of 30 units. So what is my marginal cost? It means if I am producing 1 more unit, what is my additional cost? I was already making the cost of 20 units when I was producing 1 unit, right? Now with the introduction of 1 more unit, my cost increased to 30. So I increased my cost by 10 units. So this 10 units is basically my marginal cost. And I denote it as MC, marginal cost. Is the concept of marginal cost clear? Similarly, if I talk about marginal benefit, here I would be getting the additional benefit. So it is the additional benefit. And how do you get the benefit? Cost is included when you produce something. So this comes in production, and benefit is something you get while you consume something. So this is in consumption. So additional benefit while consuming 1 more unit of goods or services. Okay. For example, if I say by consuming 1 unit I am getting 20 utils of satisfaction. Okay. While consuming 2 units I am getting 40 utils of satisfaction. So what is my additional satisfaction I am getting? 20 units of satisfaction I am getting. Is it clear the concept of marginal benefit and marginal cost? Give me yes in the chat room. Any doubt till now? Waiting for 30 seconds. If you have any doubt, give me the doubt in the chat room. If you don't have any doubt, give me a yes in the chat room. Come on, quickly guys. Okay, so assuming there is no doubt, let's move forward to a further concept, that is BOT, basically balance of trade. Now when I talk about I am producing something, so either I can also send it to foreign country or I can receive some item from the foreign country as well. So if this is my domestic country and this is, for example, foreign country. If I am getting goods and services from foreign country to my domestic country, this is called import. Okay. The movement of goods and services from another country to the domestic country, my home country, I call it as domestic country. Okay. This is called import of goods and services. And the vice versa, if I am making the movement from a domestic country to my foreign country or some another country, it is called export of goods and services. Very basic concept. Now, when I subtract this export units less import units, this is basically called my balance of trade. Okay, export import the part of trade, and when I am subtracting this is called balance of trade. Balance is basically the difference. Okay. Now while doing export of goods and services, I am sending something to another country, I am selling something to another country, right? So I will get the cash inflow, right? I will get some money in return of my goods and services. But while I am doing the import, I am taking something from another country. That's why there would be outflow of my currency, right? So if my export is greater than import, I would be making a positive cash flow, net cash flow, or I would be making a negative net cash flow. I am getting more money, right, as compared to whatever I am spending. So here in this case I will get trade surplus. Whenever something is in excess, we get surplus, right? So this is trade surplus. And whenever my imports are greater than exports, it is my trade deficit. Please make sure whenever I am saying imports greater or exports greater, I am not talking about number of imports, I am talking about the value of imports. It is possible that I am sending, for example, I am importing a machinery, I am importing one machinery only, okay, which is already costing me in billions. But I am exporting, for example, some raw material, for example, coffee I am exporting, which means even though I am exporting 100 units or 1000 units, it is hard to make up a billion, right? So I am not talking about these numbers, I am talking about these values. Is this clear? Are the concepts of exports and imports clear? Now coming to last topic of this chapter is price. How is price determined? Anyone in the chat box, how is price determined? Price is determined basically interaction of demand and supply. Okay, two factors that affect my price are basically demand of that good or service and the supply of that good or service. How they affect very in detail, they would be discussed in demand and supply chapter or price chapter, okay. But just to give you a brief overview, for example, there are only 10 units of some good in the market. Basically take the example of the vegetable market, okay. If my crop has, for example, crop are grown very well, okay. So there are more supply in the market, but demand is normal, so prices will reduce. Why? Because farmers may struggle to sell the units at higher prices. Similarly, if there is a crop failure, for example, in the economy or in the country, so there would be less supply of those goods, but demand would be high. So at that time prices would increase because people are willing to buy at a higher prices from the suppliers. Okay, don't go to in detail how our price determined by demand and supply, just remember this concept for now, that prices are determined with the interaction of supply and demand. Okay, this is my demand, this is my supply, and this is my price basically. Okay, now when I am talking about this price, this is basically my equilibrium price. This is my equilibrium price. What is equilibrium? Equilibrium is the constant. Okay, I am willing to stay at this level. There is no tendency to move away from this position. Okay, willing to stay, no tendency or no intention to move away. This is called equilibrium, balance, which is basically called balance. Okay, Equilibrium is synonym to balance. So when I talk about equilibrium price, so what price is determined by supply and demand. When I talk about equilibrium price, I am talking about balance between supply and demand, which means supply equals to demand at my equilibrium price. You can see demand is shown by this curve, supply is shown by this curve. When are they interacting? They are equal. So at this moment my supply will be equal to demand. This is called my equilibrium price. Clear, guys? So what is equilibrium? Equilibrium is basically where I do not want to move away from my position, which is the position of balance. And when I talk it with the respect of price, so equilibrium price is basically the position where my supply of goods and services is equal to my demand of that good or service. So with that we have completed our first chapter. Give me yes in the chat room and then we can quickly discuss a question. Quickly guys, give me a yes in the chat room. Okay, so there is a question, I am giving you a question and you try making the points out of the question, okay. Discuss advantages and disadvantages of command economy. We have discussed this command economy already. Try making out at least 2 points of these advantages. Come on, try making these 2 points advantages. Please make sure whenever we are doing a live class and we are doing a question, try giving me your answer in the chat box so that I can know you are able to make the points, okay. We have to make the points in the exam ultimately. So please practice by giving me the points in the chat box. Think about the command economy, what is command economy and what can be the possible advantages of a command economy. Quickly, waiting for your answer. Come on. Quickly give me the points, guys. Even if you are able to make 1 point at this point, please give me 1 point only, okay. You will be able to increase your progress by class, okay. I am not expecting you giving me perfect answer at this stage only, but at least try something. waiting for 30 more seconds. Please give me the answer in the chat box, guys. Okay, so we have to discuss the advantages and disadvantages of which economy? Command economy. What was command economy? Command economy was basically socially planned economy where everything resources, every decision regarding resources, production, consumption is related to, is taken by the government or centrally planned authority. Okay. So if I talk about the advantages first. So this is how you should approach a question. This question is basically to teach you guys how to approach a question. Firstly, you would bring in your mind what is command economy. Okay, you have the properties of command economy. All resources are central, all resources are taken by government. All decisions, economic decisions are centrally planned, right? So what can be the advantages? Now I will talk about the centrally planned issues. Unemployment, okay, efficiencies. So advantages could be that my resources are employed in the required goods or services. For example, if in an economy the government takes most of the decisions, what they will try? They will try, for example, cigarettes could be banned or cigarettes could not be produced. So they would influence the production units of cigarettes with their decision, and they would direct their resources which could be used, which was used for cigarettes, into some better use of resources. Okay. So I can say better use of resources. I am not talking about optimum use of resources, I am talking about better use of resources or resources for better goods or services. Okay, there is a difference. Second could be unemployment. They can take decisions regarding unemployment because the economy is controlled by the central authority. So they can take the decisions regarding how many jobs to create, how many jobs to reduce, and nothing is dependent on demand and supply of the jobs. So they can reduce unemployment. Okay. Now if I talk about national output, so again they can produce the national output in the best possible way, or whatever the national output is required. For example, in this time they want some good X to be produced in the economy more affluently as compared to good B. So that's why they will direct their national output to that direction only. Now if I talk about the disadvantages, what can be the disadvantages? Whenever we talk about price, demand and supply, they talk about equilibrium. So efficiencies could not be met. When I talk about efficiency, for example, allocative efficiency could not be met. The government would be distributing the resources according to the needs. The government would be setting the prices, or government would be distributing the goods and services according to the consumers' needs, right, for managing the equity in the economy. So allocative efficiency, which talk about maximum satisfaction to the consumers, would not be met, for example. Productive efficiency could not be met. Okay. Another advantage could be redistribution of income could be in best possible way, right. Here the disadvantage could be delay in decision making, since there is a lot of red tapeism in everything, that's why there could be delay in decision making. Now we know that this free economy or the capital economy is basically the reciprocal of this economy only. So its disadvantages become that economy's advantages, and its advantages become that economy disadvantage. So this is clear. How do we define advantages and disadvantages? Basically we define the characteristics of command economy, and using those characteristics we define, okay, this can be the disadvantage, this can be the advantage. So this is how you will be required to approach a question in CB2. So if everything is clear, give me a yes in the chat room. If there is any doubt regarding this first chapter, any concept, give me the doubt in the chat room, or we can wind up the class. Quickly guys, I am waiting for a response, otherwise we would be wrapping up the class. Any doubt till now in any of the concept, any of the definition, any general question? Fatima, you are in the class, any doubt?